Welcome to all. Adult learners is completely different from children. What are the principles that we have to keep while teaching adult learners? Or what are the psychological principles we have to keep in mind? That is the focus of today's session. The title is Psychology of Adult Learning and Motivation. And this topic is part of the course MAAE 001 Understanding Adult Education. In order to have a deliberate discussion, we have with us Dr. Letha Mohan. Let I introduce Madam. Letha Mohan has been working in the field of education for the last 4 decades in the capacity of assistant professor and associate professor in affiliated colleges of GGSIUP. And then now she is working as the chief consultant in the field of education, which is run by Ministry of Education in connection with Samagra Shiksha. Welcome, Madam, to this session.
Thank you so much.
Before directly going to the different principles and theories of adult education, let us have a brief look on the definitions of psychology. When we think of psychology, the term psychology is derived from the Greek word psyche, which means soul, self, or mind, and logos. And literally we can state that it is to talk about the psyche. Psychology can be defined as the scientific study of human behavior and experience. And it has 3 fundamental aspects: cognition, conation, and affection. When we look at the cognitive aspect, we know that we are giving importance for the thought process, and for the affective, what are the thoughts, interest, aptitude that comes in our mind, and for the conation, how do we utilize these principles, especially the psychomotor thing. Coming to psychology, we know that the term educational psychology is relevant while we talk about the adult learning and psychology. What do we mean by educational psychology? It is the application of psychological principles to education. So, how to study in various educational settings, the effectiveness of educational interventions, the psychology of teaching, and the social psychology of schools as organizations, they are coming into relevance. So we have seen what is psychology, what is educational psychology. Now, Dr. Letha, when we think of this adult learning, it is important to throw some light on the nature of teaching and learning. Could you please throw some light on this aspect?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Elizabeth, for having me here. I find that psychology is a very, very fascinating subject, especially education psychology, because it has implications for teaching, for learning, for curriculum, for assessment, for evaluation. In all aspects, it has its profound implication. So, of course, when we talk of education, the first variable that comes to our mind is teacher. So, the nature of teaching, let us discuss that. Teacher is said to be, there are so many definitions, but mostly we think of teacher as one person helping another person to achieve knowledge, skills, attitude, etc. But traditionally, we had the picture of a teacher as a sage on stage. She was an instructor pouring knowledge on the learners who were seated before the teacher. The learners or the pupils were considered as tabula rasa, meaning empty slates, and the teacher was the instructor and pouring knowledge into such vessels. But this was refuted by many educationists and psychologists, especially Paul Ferrer. Then we have many educationists closer home. We had Gandhiji, we had Tagore, we had Vivekananda, who refuted this argument that education is all about teaching. So from the sage on stage, the paradigm shift is towards the guide by the side. Now when we talk of teaching, now the main job is the modification of a behavior of the learner. Okay, the behavior can be relatively permanent, and the teacher's job is not just limited to giving instruction. Today her role is changed. We can see that she's become so versatile, multitasking she does. She's a counselor, she's a manager, she's a coordinator, she's a co-learner, which has been emphasized by even Tagore, who said that unless a lamp burns itself, it cannot light another lamp. Similarly, unless a teacher continues to learn, she can never be a good teacher. And Einstein, in those days, he figured it out. He said the importance of learning. He said, the day somebody stops learning, he or she is dead. And our Gandhiji, the great educationist, though we know him as a patriot and a nationalist, his contribution in education too was immense. He especially talked about what is most relevant today, that is drawing out the best within oneself. Even this was echoed by Vivekananda, who said, education is the process of drawing out the best in man. So we see from the traditional, the role of the teacher, we have come a long way. Even our national education policy, for that matter, stresses very emphatically that learning should be learner-centered. The teacher has to be a guide by the side, helping, nudging, and hand-holding if needed, and co-learning. Even in assessment, you see, we are talking about teacher along with the assessment as for learning and not of learning. So you see, the nature of teaching has undergone a sea change from teacher-centered activities to learner-centered. Now, if you asked about the nature of learning, yes, right? So let us talk about the nature of learning. The learning, again, there are many definitions, but we mostly say that learning is a change in behavior. That is, through the various environmental factors, there is a change in the behavior of the learner. He imbibes knowledge, skills, attitude through various experiences and practices. Now, learning, there are many things about learning we have to talk. Learning is a continuous process. Earlier also we said that learning is never an end product. It is a process as well as a product. Okay, we may at the end of a text we may learn something, that's a product, but the process is more and more important than the the product. What exactly the child has learned is not as important as how the child explored, understood, and arrived at that answer. So it is, as I said, it's a continuous process, it is a progressive, and it's a universal process. People think that only certain learners can learn. In fact, some we may again refute the idea that only at times people said only the upper class could learn, only male could learn, only boys would understand maths better. But I want to emphatically say that is very erroneous. Every child is capable of learning. So it is a universal process. It is progressive, and it is both a process and a product, and the modification can be relatively permanent. I won't say it is a permanent behavior change, but of course we have to use that word relative. Sometimes, learning happens through maturity. So it is not just only by, going and attending a school, especially when we talk of adult learning, okay? It is not necessary that the adult goes through the school and college process, can learn through experience also. So that is about learning, nature of teaching as well as nature of learning.
Okay, so Madam has clearly stated about the nature of learning and teaching. Could you throw some light on the nature of adult learning?
Sure. Of course, adult learning, many people will, have this misconception that adult is an oversized child, but that is not the way it is to be seen. Adults education, by this we mean that adults are more or less mature when they come to this part. Matured through various experience. You see, there are so many farmers, so many artisans, so many agriculturists, the industrial workers who have imbibed knowledge from culture to culture, from generation to generation. It must have been past. So they are not just there to learn something. They have the background, they have the wealth of information, and they are here for adult learning with a particular purpose, right? Yes. So adult learning is when the adults are more or less mature, they are balanced in the sense they know what they know and what they want to know also. So that is another principle of adult learning. So then about the reward and punishment. Children will naturally think that if they get the A grade, they get the immediate gratification. But for adults, that is not the way. They have their own aim. They have a particular purpose. Yes. In attending classes, for taking up courses. For example, we may say in the HR, if for a particular post for promotion, the person is asked to undergo a course or an MBA online or something, so that person would gladly do it because the ultimate aim is that he wants a promotion. So for them, the aim is all fixed. But we must remember, Dr. Elizabeth, yes, that when we are talking of adult education, they are of various ages. They have very different interests, different aptitude. Their background is different. Their socio-economic background is also different. The educational background is different. So we have to, as a teacher or an educator, we have to see those background. But very, very importantly, we must say that adults should not be regarded as, uneducated and unlearned, and we are going to give them some education. Sometimes their wealth of knowledge is more than us. I would like to share a recent incident, an interesting incident, I must say. There was this professor, very learned professor, lady professor. She got a new gadget for her home, for the kitchen, a juicer time, technologically very advanced gadget. She brought it home and put it in the kitchen, and she was going through the pamphlet to understand how it is to fix the juicer. And she got very frustrated, too many instructions and all that. So she left it and she went for attending an online meeting. After the meeting, when she came to the kitchen, she found that the juice was ready and it was ready, kept on the table. So she asked the maid, how did you do this?
Yes.
Then, she said, oh, it is nothing. मैं रोज देखती हूँ. I know how it is how to operate this. So बहुत problem नहीं था, आराम से हो गया. See the difference. The professor is such a learned one, but maybe theoretically she is very learned. But this maid, who has hardly gone to a school, she could handle that better.
So we can say that there is the importance of the real life learning.
Yes, the experience.
So in that context, could you explain about the principles of adult learning?
Okay.
What principles that we have to follow?
Yes.
While we teach that.
Yes. So adults, of course, are motivated to learn as they experience their needs and interests that learning will satisfy. As I said, they may have their own interests and their own needs. Okay. Suppose they are facing a problem. It is a very challenging problem. Maybe economically there is a problem, a crisis, a financial crisis. They want to come out of the. So they will be motivated to learn only if you are there to satisfy that part. Similarly, as orientation is all life-centered. So for organizing the learning units, we have to provide them everyday examples or life situations and not just subject, topic. Big textbooks will not work. We have to provide them with real life sample. But I think not only just adults, even today's learners, they are, if we expose them to more real life situation, their understanding would be much better and even lasting, I must say. Yes. And as you rightly said, experience is the richest resource. So providing them with valuable experience would make them learn better and faster. So that then we come to the other things, that they have self-direction. Learner, as an adult learner, they should not be said that this should be done, this should not be done. Let them explore it at their own pace and style. We can't put them into, watertight compartment and then they ask them to learn.
Yes.
They have to be more into inquiry-based. Why this problem happened? What can be the probable solution and how can we, improve upon it? Then your role and my role as teachers is to engage them in this inquiry instead of being prescriptive, giving, theories of, what it is. We have to be with them as co-learners and help them delve into the problem and then understand, explore, and then come out with solution. So, and very importantly, as I said earlier also, each adult is unique with unique characters, unique interests, unique background. Individual differences do exist. So we have to respect their individual differences. There may be emotional barriers. So we can't say you cannot learn because of your background. So there are some, we have to draw them out of that. They must make optimal provision for this different style, place, and pace of learning. So that is about the principles of learning.
Okay. Madam has detailed about the principles of adult learning. Now, when we think of the relevance of psychology to adult learning, what are the relevance? When we think of the relevance, first thing, as a teacher, we should know the learner first, because the background, the interest, the aptitude, the ability, all the things the teacher should know. And we know that, as Dr. Letha has stated, that each learner has individual differences. So it is important to know the needs, interests, attitudes, and the aptitude of each learner. And in such cases, When we give some kinds of activities, the interpersonal relationship of the teacher and the adult learner, it plays a significant role. For the children, we can use some kind of punishment or some kind of disciplinary activity. But for the adult, we should be very careful. It is at par, and the need for the interpersonal relationship is very much important. Here comes the importance of educational psychology, where the teacher can adopt the various principles of psychology while teaching the adult. The knowledge of educational psychology helps the teacher to understand the personality of each adult learner. That is an important aspect. And coming to the different theories of educational psychology, let I request Dr. Letha to explain about the learning by association.
Okay. So, the theories of learning, when we discuss, the first set of theories we remember is about behaviorism.
Yes.
Right? So, their influence is very, very paramount in the field of, teaching and learning. So, this learning, the theory of association, learning by association, was propounded by E.L. Thorndike. So, he called it the operant or instrumental conditioning. So, we talk about stimulus and response, and the association between the stimulus and the response. So, every learned response that brings a pleasant, pleasant feeling, a joy, a solace to an organism is likely to be retained, and it is likely to be repeated. Similarly, if the response brings unpleasantness, so we would try to avoid that type of response. This was by Thorndike, and very, very relevant in many aspects of learning, because we are establishing an association between the stimulus and the response. In the same manner, any learned response. So, if on the one side, if the response is good and favorable, it will be repeated. At the same time, there are some responses that causes irritation or unpleasantness or calamity. We would definitely avoid such thing, right? So, for example, a child touching a hot object, the response, it immediately feels the pain and the burn. So, the child would definitely avoid that, and the next time it sees something like that. Yes, then we talk about the three laws also. Yes. We have the law of effect, the law of exercise, the law of readiness. In effect, as I said, if the effect or the response is good and favorable, we repeat, and if it is unfavorable, we avoid. Similarly, exercise. This law is very, very useful, because practice makes the man perfect. So, repeatedly, if we practice, if we continuously do it, then the learning becomes permanent. But I have to warn that too many repetition will bring in ennui or restlessness, frustration. So, a teacher should be very careful not to just repeatedly give the same sort of problems or same sort of assignment. There has to be a variety. Then the other one also, the law of readiness. If the learner is mentally, physically ready for learning, it would absorb very easily, which is very, very relevant in today's policy also. We have readiness programs in school, yes, where we see that the learner is age appropriately ready, mental health is ready, physically ready, and he comes with a prior background of certain readiness for that particular class. I hope I tried to make it clear.
Yes, madam. So, Dr. Letha has clearly stated about the learning by association. And when we consider the educational implication of learning by association, the first thing is that the classroom experience, it should be pleasant and joyful. Otherwise, it is very much difficult for the learner to engage in. And we can see that regarding the relationship between the teacher and the student, there should be a good interpersonal relationship. Or, in other words, we can state that a good rapport should be established. And coming to the next aspect, that is providing the learning activities where it creates the learning experiences, it should follow from the known to the unknown or from the simple to the complex, or we can state that it should be given in a format of increasing difficulty so that the confidence of the learner will improve and there will be no stagnation. So we have heard about the learning by association. Could you please explain about learning by conditioning, which is also an important theory of learning?
Again, of course, this learning by conditioning is again a behavioristic theory. So you must remember that behaviorist theories talk about the external factors to learning. So we will come to the other part, the cognitive theory. So in behavior theory, the first name that comes to our mind, of course, is the Russian psychologist Pavlov and his experiments with the dog. So we can illustrate it through the diagram. So there are two, one is classical and the other is operant. So his experiment with the dog, you can see here very clearly, there are, in the picture, the first one that you see, there's a dog, there's food kept before the dog. So the minute the dog sees the food, it starts, salivating. So what happened? The food is the unconditioned stimulus and the dog producing saliva. That is the unconditional or natural response. Seeing good food, we all tempted to eat. So that is the US, that is unconditional stimulus and the unconditional response. Now what happened? The psychologist, what he did, he started ringing a bell while keeping a food before the dog. So the dog, of course, it started salivating and the saliva used to be collected and measured. Okay, so repeatedly the process was, experiment was conducted, ringing of the bell, keeping the food, and of course the response was the saliva production. But after repeatedly doing this, what happened? The next time, only the bell was rung, no food was kept. But still, the dog started salivating. So what does this show? This is a neutral stimulus we are giving, but then again we are getting a response. So this was the famous theory propounded by Pavlov when he said that after conditioning, the conditioned stimulus, the bell, it produced a conditioned response, that is saliva. So this is again, you see, before conditioning, we have the US is the unconditioned stimulus, we have the unconditioned response, that is saliva. Then we have the neutral stimulus. First time when the bell rang, did you see? Nothing happened. The dog just stared at the bell and, it was listening, it didn't do any action. But third time, after repeatedly doing, you see, the non-stimulus plus the unconditional stimulus, it produced an unconditional response. So the bell plus food, it began to drool, and after conditioning, even without the food, just by hearing the bell, it could salivate. So this is the theory by Pavlov. Then Skinner modified, and he brought in the very, very important concept of reinforcement. Okay, a behavior which is not a natural response is learned through reinforcement and punishment, which is very, very commonly used in the education system. Now you may ask, what is reinforcement? Okay, so reinforcing is increasing the frequency or the probability of a learned response occurring again and again. Now in that also we have two types. One is the positive reinforcement, very common in school. Suppose a child gives a very good response, the teacher says sabash, well done, excellent. Sometimes they give a badge, sometimes a sticker. This is good enough for the child. It tries to, each time when this question is asked, the child does to excel in that performance. Why? Because the child is getting a pat on her back, reinforcement is there. And now we talk of negative. Negative reinforcement is by removing something, you get a good response. For example, you are concentrating on a presentation, you are busy with that, window open, there is a lot of external noise. So what do? You go and shut the window. So the noise stops, you are able to be more productive. So this is the negative one. Similarly, punishment also we have two types. Again, we should say positive punishment, like for scolding. If a child does something wrong, or if a learner does something erroneous, by giving a punishment or scolding, the child or the learner stops doing that. Whereas the negative punishment is by decreasing the response by producing a reinforcement. Okay, suppose you are the child is very fond, or the learner is fond of watching a TV. The punishment is that if you do not respond well, or if you do not study well, we will stop that your TV watching time. We will reduce it. So this is how the operant conditioning works. Not a natural response, but we can make it natural response through providing various sets of reinforcement.
So here also the learning by conditioning. When we think of the educational implications, as Dr. Letha stated, the role of reinforcement plays a key role. So here what is important is that the teacher should be very careful in providing or adopting reinforcement in classrooms, whether it is positive reinforcement, and in some cases the negative reinforcement is also important. So here the negative reinforcement that leads to some kind of thing which is removed, it increases the responses in a positive way. And the next thing, when we think that providing suitable practical work that fosters many skill is important for in terms of the adult learners. Without practical activities, we cannot develop the skills. So now we know that employability and skill learning we are emphasizing as per the policy also. So here, for developing the skills, practical work should be provided. And the basic implication of operant conditioning to instructional activities is dependency on observable behavior. So the observable behavior, when we stated that it should be appropriate and in front of the learners, they are going to study for many things. For that, we can say that the reinforcement facilitates learning. So we have discussed about the two theories, that is learning by conditioning and learning by association. Could you throw some light on learning by trial and error?
Yes, again, this is also based on reward. So, we saw that these psychologists experimented with animals. So, Thorndike did an interesting experiment with a cat. So, the cat was, put on a puzzle box and it was moving around. And there were two, ways to get out. The cat didn't know how to go about it, but by accident it chanced upon a way to come out. So immediately it could come out and it was rewarded. So the chance that by repeatedly doing this, it started avoiding the wrong ways of getting out, and it was coming by each repeated action made it very convenient to come closer and closer to the exit. So this is very similar to what we saw in operant conditioning. So the reward and the association between the stimulus and the reward, if it is the frequency is increased or if it is strengthened, then the response would be better and better. So this is the SR bond again we are talking. So again you saw that in the beginning also I said learning is not just a product. It is how it is processed. Yes. The product affects the process. The effect of learning would affect the process of learning. So it's a stimulus. If it's a pleasing, it's very common with everybody for that matter. If something gives you a positive feeling, you would like to do it repeatedly. If something gives you a displeasure, you would avoid it.
So here when we think of these educational implications, the law of effect is very much important, which states that when a response to a stimulus produces a pleasing effect on the organism, the same response is likely to occur. That is an important thing when we think of this learning by trial and error. And other laws, when we think that, we can see that the law of exercise, that by doing lot of activities and exercise, it will strengthen that learning theories forever. So that, as stated earlier, practice makes a man perfect. And then repetition of a learned response strengthens the response. The law of readiness indicates the learner's willingness to make the connection between the stimulus and response. So here what is important is that when the learner is ready in all aspects, then only the desirable learning is taking place. So now could you throw some light on learning by insight?
Okay. So, so far we were talking about behaviorism. Now, learning by insight, this school of thought is from cognitivism. What cognition is, how the mind processes, how you perceive, how you, it's all about thinking, about problem solving, you're inquiring, finding solution. All this comes under cognition. And in today's time and date, cognitive theories have become very, very predominant. Especially we talk about problem solving ability. Nowadays, in the 21st century skill we talk about, it is all about cognition, how you arrive at a problem. Now, inside, you all must have had these aha moments, right? Hey, I have found a solution, is it not? Yes. Hooray! When you suddenly chance upon a solution, you are excited. We call it the aha moment. Yes. So it is all about learning by insight. Learning by insight means that direct learning without a process of blind. So far we have been, trial and error. We have been trying many ways and then finding a solution, then repeating, then doing again and again. This is chance upon a solution. We may know somewhere it is there, but suddenly we chance upon the right thing. So the power of seeing into and understanding and enlightenment, as I said, aha moment. We have heard of Archimedes, how he found it, law of gravity, and suddenly he said, hooray. So that is learning by insight. But how this also suddenly, for it to happen also, there is a process, there are steps. I would like to talk about the step. First is preparation. For any learning to happen, we have to have the right material, things, the aim, the objective, everything is there before us. Okay, so we have to have a preparation. Then you try and you're not getting the answer, then suddenly you think, oh, not for me, I'll give up.
Yes.
See, the give up is the incubation time. You will retire from that, you'll do something else. For example, you are trying to find a Sudoku, we play Sudoku, children do that. Trying many ways of doing it, you are not getting the pattern, you leave it and do something else. But suddenly, that moment, the insight, the third step come, aha moment. Then you say, I know I can do the solution, I can find this. You come back, do it, you're getting an answer. Okay, there are so many jigsaw puzzle we try to do repeatedly, we're not getting. Crossword puzzle I try to do, I don't get it, I leave it frustrated. I go do some other work and suddenly I realize, oh, this is the word. You come back. That is insight. But we shouldn't leave it at insight. We have to do verification also, okay, whether the solution is correct or not.
So here, when we think of this learning by insight, what I feel is that the experience is an important part.
Very important.
That the learners will get the insight to some kind of repeated experiences. So the insight learning is possible only by the individual's unending attempt.
Search.
They have to do so many attempts, and then their endeavor should be unending. So that only
we should
they
not underscore the endeavor or the effort. You can't simply sit and say, oh, I want this answer. You have to work upon
a lot. So in order to work a lot, that generally in the classroom, that thing what is telling that there is a lack of time. So in order to overcome this time constraint, what we have to give sufficient time to the learners. That is an important thing that we have to give to the learners, so that they will get enough time to make their own effort.
But sadly, teachers are in a hurry to finish the portion
and everything. So they are not able to concentrate more or to give more time to the learners to find new ways or to find out the insights of the learners.
Very true.
So now we have completed the theories of learning, what we are discussing. And now one more concept is there with the topic, that is motivation. So could you throw some light on the concept of motivation?
Is very relevant today. Many children, especially elder adolescent, they always complain that I am not motivated. Similarly, adults also, in the workplace we say we are not getting the right motivation. But what is motivation? Motivation is derived from the Latin word that movere, that is to move. So how should we move? We have to have a drive within ourselves. We have something has to, we have to be aroused. We have to be stimulated, and it has to be sustained. So that is the motivation. That something which will energize to do and direct you to do certain action. That is motivation, which is very important for learning, for any progress or matter.
Yes.
We cannot simply, put the blame that we are not motivated, we can't learn anymore, we can't do anymore. Employees, they complain always that we don't want to work, we don't want to give our best because we are the employers are not motivating us. So this is one thing which will energize the behavior and it sustain the interest. Okay, so for many, in the initial stage they show a lot of curiosity and motivation, but the sustaining part is not. They don't, till the last they can't keep up that energy level for longer time. So we have to have this idea that motivation would keep us going, would make it sustaining, and we will have the desire. If we have the desire, anything can happen. So it will direct and regulate our behavior, and it is directed. We should have a goal. That is why in all educational centers we have the learning outcomes. Especially school education, we have the learning outcome clearly stated by NCERT. Yes. At the end of the course, what a child would attain. So if we have the goal, if we know where to go, then we will take the right steps forward. So it is directed towards selecting a goal. The motive is terminated. Once you are achieving the goal, that motivation is terminated. So this we have seen. Then we have both, do we have the time to explain? We have the extrinsic and the intrinsic. Yes. So as the word clearly explains, intrinsic is within ourselves and extrinsic is what is outside. Intrinsic, I want to learn music. Not that I would get a medal from somebody. I won't get an Oscar award, but it's a hobby. It keeps me very light-hearted. So that is my intrinsic motivation to learn music. Whereas extrinsic motivation for adults especially, they are said, so if you do this course, or if you complete this task, you will get this double promotion, you would get, incentive. All these are extrinsic motivation. But I insist that if the motivation is intrinsic, that is long-lasting. So I would like to emphasize on that part, that which comes from within.
So Dr. Letha has clearly stated that the intrinsic motivation is important as far as adult learners are concerned.
Yes.
But for the pedocentric education, we are giving importance for the extrinsic, where the learners get attracted and their interests can be sustained.
Yes.
So the motivation, whether it is adult learners or child learners, it's an important aspect in order to energize the behavior and interest of the learners and to sustain the interest of the learners to continue their education. We can see that in the online courses or in some of the ODL, we can see many dropouts. So in order to sustain the interest of the learners, motivation is an important aspect. Yes. So they should have a goal, so that in order to achieve the goal, the motivation is an important thing. Yes. So now let us go a little bit, a glimpse of the theories of motivation. Could you throw some light on the psychoanalytic and Maslow's theory of education?
Maslow, very, very, very famous theory of motivation. So he said that our actions are motivated in order to achieve certain need, and it is the hierarchy. You see the pyramid there. We move from the basic needs to self-actualization. That is at the top of the pyramid we see self-actualization, and the movement is from basic to higher level. First is the physiological need, that is our comfort, our food, our sleep, our water, all this. Once you are satisfied with your basic needs only, we can, go to the next need. So it's very rightly said, a hungry stomach will not listen to any learning. So we have to plan plan accordingly. Then once we have the next is safety need, where we have to have the security and the safe feeling. Then only we attempt to move forward. So the next is love and belonging. Everyone wants to have the sense of love and belonging. You care for somebody and you are being cared, which are very, very, very important. And then the next step is the self-esteem. You have to respect yourself, as well as you learn the respect or gain respect from all others around you, community, family, employers, everybody. And once you move slowly from all these needs, then we are at the top, where there is scope for self-actualization, realizing our own potential. We come to the ultimate, the fullest, potential, where we reach is the self-actualization state. So it's a pyramid, a hierarchy, a level increasing difficulty, and we ultimately come to the self-actualization.
So regarding except the psychoanalytic and Maslow's theory, we can see that McClellan's need achievement theory,
Yes.
that is also important,
that is important,
where the main emphasis is upon to reduce tension in order to attain the physiological and psychological equilibrium. So the need for power, the need for achievement, it's important for every individual. That is an important aspect. Coming to the next thing, we can see besides the theories, there are some approaches to motivation. Could you throw some light on the various approaches to motivation?
So we have various approaches. So I'll quickly go through that. We have the need-based approach, as I said, the felt need. Then we have the friendly approach. Then we have the individual contact, that is establishing contact. Then we have the participatory approach. Then we have the achievement. We have already said about recognition, valuing, and then we have the own expectation, how to achieve our expectation. And then we need activities which will make us creative, and we are creative and problem solving abilities. So we have various approaches to motivation. Each learner is motivated by various needs. So that is all about approaches to motivation.
So we have discussed about the various theories and the approaches to motivation, and before that we have discussed about the various theories of learning. Now the last one, what I want to ask is, why to understand so much of psychobabble?
Yes, so much we have been babbling along, I think for nearly 1 hour. But remember, this is a fascinating subject, and this helps you to understand human behavior, why we do what we do, and how learners can make connection, how they can store memory, how they can perceive, and how they can arrive at various aha moments of insight. I think feedback is also very
much important. So hope that the learners, you might have enjoyed, and thank you to Dr. Letha for elaborating the various theories of learning as well as the theories of motivation. Hope that in the adult educational setup, how a teacher should be, what are the theories should be adopted, and how to motivate the adult learner. We have thrown out many theories, many approaches. Hope that you can adopt in your classroom and make the adult learning a memorable and the joyful learning. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.